Listening to the City World Radio Network, high-definition digital radio broadcasting from the city to the world. www.cityworldradio.com.
was in the valley of the moon. I met the lady with the golden hair. Was in the valley of the moon that we found a dream to share. She whispered tender words of love. I breathed the promise as I held her hand, and sealed it by the moon above, there upon the silver sand. My ship was sailing before the dawn, and all at once I found the lady gone. I lost the only love I'd ever known, and so I sailed away alone. Now how a memory can burn when mandolins recall a certain tune. Someday I know I shall return.
I walked into town on silver spurs that jingled too, a song that I had only sang to just a few. She saw my silver spurs and said, let's pass the time, and I will give to you summer wine. Oh, summer wine.
Strawberries, cherries, and an angel's kiss in spring. My summer wine is really made from all these things. Take off your silver spurs and help me pass the time, and I will give to you summer wine. Whoa, whoa, summer wine.
My eyes grew heavy and my lips, they could not speak. I tried to get up, but I couldn't find my feet. She reassured me with an unfamiliar line, and then she gave to me, you guessed it,
the still of the night, as I gaze from my window at the moon in its flight, my thoughts all stray to you. In the still of the night, while the world is in slumber, oh, the times without number, darling, when I say to you, do you love me as I love you? I a la vida que me ha dado tanto. Me dio dos luceros que cuando las abro perfecto distingo lo negro del blanco, y en el alto cielo su fondo estrellado, y en las multitudes el hombre que yo amo. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado el sonido y el abecedario, donde las palabras
The one up and walk out on me. Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song. I will try not to sing out of key. Yeah. Oh, baby, how you like? All I need is my brother. I say I'm gonna get high.
Vai minha tristeza e diz a ela que sem ela não pode ser. Diz-lhe numa prece que ela regresse, porque eu não posso mais sofrer. Chega de saudade, a realidade é que sem ela não há paz, não há beleza, é só tristeza e a melancolia que não sai de mim, não sai de mim, não sai. Mas se ela voltar, que coisa linda, que coisa louca, pois há menos peixinhos
5, 6,
a
7
nadar.
o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. Put your glad rags on, join me home. We'll have some fun when the clock strikes 1. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock, rock, rock till broad daylight. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. When the clock strikes 2, 3, and 4, if the band slows down, we'll yell for more. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock, rock, rock till broad daylight. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. Your eyes are like 2 jewels in the sky. Your back is straight, your hair is smooth on the pillow where you lie. But I don't sense affection, no gratitude or love. Your loyalty is not to me, but to the stars above. One more cup of coffee for the road. One more cup of coffee before I go to the valley below. Your daddy, he's an outlaw and a wonder by trade. He'll teach you how.
Way down among Brazilians, coffee beans grow by the billions, so they've got to find those extra cups to fill. They've got an awful lot of coffee in Brazil. You can't get cherry soda, 'cause they've got to fill that quota. And the way things are, I'll bet they never will. They've got a zillion tons of coffee in Brazil.
Yeah, I think we need an iced latte in the house, in the studio. It's another summer, sultry, July, hot as heck evening, but it is beautiful in New York City. And this is my world. Welcome to my world. Welcome to Mia's world. Welcome to City World Radio, and welcome to Jade Zabrich, my engineer. I'm thinking words. We're talking sounds on radio. Jade Zabrich is a singer-songwriter and a wonderful engineer. So welcome, Jade. Where are you playing next? Oh, great. Fantastic. Jade Zabrich. And she's got her own radio show on Sundays. So check out cityworldradio.com. And in the house also, welcome to Nick Stone, the head of Bluestone Lane, another amazing story of a coffee experience, I guess I would say. And we're going to, right?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on.
Yes,
And,
I'm glad you're here. I'm so glad Nick Stone is here from Bluestone Lane because I am really fussy about my coffee. And I have to say, your espresso is amazing. So I have to start dabbling and trying some other things. But we're going to talk to Nick about many of the Bluestone Lane years in formation and your life and your coffee life and your business world and your coffee world. So, but first, let me just a few announcements. You know, that music medley that I always start with on Mia's World is based on people born on that day, being July 9th. So let's hear what we heard. So we started off with Moonlight in Vermont, my theme song, the Carl Susdorf classic standard. Then I also include in my medley favorites of my guests. And Nick Stone picked some indie bands, including Radiohead, so that was no surprises. That was a surprise to me, actually, because I don't know that much of Radiohead, but I should. Then we heard Leonard Pinerio, the American pianist born July 9th, 1924, with Midnight on the Cliffs, which was used by Doris Day in a film called Julie, which I did not know about, so I learned a lot doing this medley. Then we heard Alan Dale, the American singer, born in Brooklyn, 1925, July 9th, with Valley of the Moon, an unknown TV clip, which I really found pretty interesting. And then American country singer Lee Hazelwood, born July 9th, 1929, with Summer Wine with Nancy Sinatra. That was a great duo. Then Jesse McReynolds, American singer and mandolinist, born 1929, July 9th, with El Cumbanchero. Buddy Bregman, the American orchestra leader from The Eddie Fisher Show, born 1930, with Ella Fitzgerald singing In the Still of the Night, a gorgeous song by Fred Paris. I'm not sure where we put in the mix Blur. I think we waited on that. So I think then we heard Argentinian singer Mercedes Sosa, born in 1935, with Gracias a la Vida. Then Gwen Guthrie with It Should Have Been You, born in Oklahoma in 1950, July 9th. Debbie Sledge from Sister Sledge with the gorgeous We Are Family, born in 1954. Tom Hanks. Now, he was born July 9th, 1956, so he's got to be like 60-something now, which is hard to believe for those of us who kind of grew up with him. Forrest Gump theme we played by Alan Silvestri. Great Forrest Gump movie. Then we heard English vocalist Mark Almond with How Can I Be Sure, written by Felix Cavalier and Eddie Brigati, born in 1957. Then American musician Courtney Love, born today in 1964 with You Know My Name. Bobby Leslie's Telephone Talking, born in 1971. He was the TV rocker from Guys Next Door. Fred Savage, the American actor from Wonder Years. He played Kevin, born today in 1976, and that was Joe Cocker's With a Little Help from My Friends, the theme song of Wonder Years in 1988. Then I think you might have put in Blur at that point, Jade. That was Blur with Coffee and TV, an indie group I did not know, again, but I chose some coffee-themed songs, and apparently, Nick Stone, you do know Blur.
Yes, very popular English band.
Yeah, okay. Then we heard American musician from Modest Mouse, Isaac Brock, with the rare track Sadness from Queens of Country soundtrack, born today in 1977. And then I had to pay tribute to one of the most incredible Brazilian musicians. I do love samba and Brazilian bossa nova. Wayo Gilberto just passed away. I think he was 88, and that was his famous Chega de Saudade. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but we need some Portuguese in the house. And then we heard a song from 1955, which reached the top of the Billboard charts, July 9th, 1955, Bill Haley and the Comets with Rock Around the Clock. Then a couple of more coffee songs in honor of my guest, Nick Stone, Bob Dylan's One More Cup of Coffee, and Frank Sinatra's The Coffee Song by Bob Hilliard and Dick Miles, recorded in 1946. So that was the medley. A couple of other birthdays today, non-musicians. The American inventor of the sewing machine, born in 1819, July 9th. Matilda Krim, the American medical researcher, founding chairman of AMFAR, Foundation for AIDS Research, born in 1926. South African cricketer Roy McLean, born in 1930. The English neurologist and author Oliver Sacks, who wrote about migraines, and I'm a migraine sufferer, so I'm fascinated by his writing. Oliver Sacks, 1933. American actor Jimmy Smits, 1955. And we mentioned American actor Tom Hanks, 1956. A couple of today's holidays, July 9th holidays. It's Cow Appreciation Day. It's Call of the Horizon Day. It's Fashion Day. It's Don't Pull All Your Eggs in One Basket Day. Don't put all your eggs in one basket day. It's National No Bra Day, and it's National Sugar Cookie Day. Who makes up these things? I have no idea, but it's kind of fun. In history today, July 9th, 2011, South Sudan became the youngest country in the world. In 1962, Andy Warhol's iconic Campbell's soup cans made their debut. July 9th, 1958, Lituya Bay mega tsunami hit Lituya Bay in Alaska, resulting in a wave that was recorded to be 1,720 feet, the highest wave recorded in history. In 1877, the first Wimbledon championship was held. In 2001, The Office mockumentary created by Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant premiered on BBC Two in the United Kingdom. And we mentioned 1955, Bill Haley and the Comets' Rock Around the Clock topped the Billboard charts, one of the best-selling singles ever. And just our famous weekly wrap-up of the news in rhyme before we talk to Nick Stone. Every week we wrap up the news in rhyme to try to add some spark to this gloom. So here we go. Joe Biden's numbers dropping. Is his energy a stoppin'? According to polls, there are some holes in his campaign which may be floppin'. But family means a lot, and son Hunter just tied the knot with Melissa Cohen told Dad on the phone, should we all dance a gavotte? South Africa is her home, and lots more to say in this poem, but what else could Hunter do than get a tattoo that says on his arm, Shalom? That's true. Nike is at it again. Don't think they counted to 10 before they decided, a bit lopsided and certainly not very zen. Colin Kaepernick's their man, who's always got a plan. This time he insisted, and no one resisted, on leading the shoe caravan, stopping the July 4th debut of a sneaker, hey, it's a shoe, called Air Max 1, and now it's undone, like the Battle of Waterloo. What was all the fuss about? What made Colin pout? The Betsy Ross flag. Gee, what a drag. I thought Betsy had more clout. She had a higher mission. She fought for abolition. So this Nike fight seems not quite right, based on Betsy's anti-slavery ambition. So the sneaks were called offensive, and now they got expensive. The Betsy Ross design is now sold online. The debate's still intensive. Putin just had a date with the Pope, but showed up late. The pontiff was not enraged. They seemed more like engaged, or at least star-kissed by fate. Heated race for the Queen's DA. For whom will we say? Who gets the congrats? Melinda Katz or Tiffany Caban? Hooray. America salute. Trump's always getting the boot. Say what you will, patriotic or nil. There's always a dispute. Shouldn't we stop the debate and simply celebrate? This country's sublime. Things turn on a dime. What will be our national fate? The U.S. is the winner. Do the soccer women seem thinner? They never gave up and won the World Cup. Now how about a big dinner? They fought hard and long, with female power strong, shouting equal pay, courage, touché, their stamina's like a song. Another landmark sensation, stopping in the nation, sad to be seen, but Mad Magazine will end its publication. A legendary Brazilian in the Samba World Pavilion has sadly passed. We're all downcast, while Gilberto, 1 in a million. It's Cow Appreciation Day, so moo your cares away. Lactaid like silk, oat or soy milk. Now where is my Chardonnay? And that's our wrap-up of the week in rhyme. We need a little news segment. New York 1. we need coffee TV. Let's do a coffee TV segment. That would be a good idea, right? Get the Bluestone Land. Anyway, welcome to Nick Stone. Thank you so much for being here, Nick.
Thank
you're
you.
not often, from what I can gather, the most frequent Bluestone Lane that I've frequented is the one on Water Street, downtown Manhattan, just because I work nearby, and it's really charming. It's aesthetic. It's calm. It's blue glass and beautifully designed, but also intimate at the same time. But I don't think that you're in New York that much, is what I feel, or are you?
I'm in New York. You're correct. I've relocated to Santa Monica to live there just over a year and a half ago. But I sort of have a quite intense travel schedule. So I spend 1 week in LA, then I spend 1 week in New York. So I'm constantly bouncing between the two coasts. But our corporate headquarters is actually above the store at 90 Water. So that's why you frequently see me hanging around there, meeting people and enjoying coffee myself.
Yeah, that's where I found you. I just had no idea where, because you hadn't shown up in over a year, and I suddenly thought, well, maybe he's here today, and that's when I first met you.
Yeah.
That's him. I hear the Australian accent. That could be him. So you were raised in Australia, obviously.
Yes. I was born and raised in Melbourne, Australia. If not the most livable city, one of them in the world, and
that's what they say. I've never been, so I don't know what that I don't
what that means. I don't know either, but it's just it's a throwaway line that I use to describe Melbourne. But it certainly has an enviable lifestyle, a great balance between work and outdoors and arts, and a very cosmopolitan society. And I moved to the States actually in New York in 2010, so I've been here for quite some time.
Oh, almost a decade.
Yeah, and I guess New York, you can really burn through years. I've found that it was just a blur that I arrived, and lots happened. I've got married, I've had a child, about to have a second one, and I've launched a business.
Mazel tov, as they say.
Thank you.
That's exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
Starting them off on little mini lattes.
Yeah, that's important to get them introduced,
them going.
And it's a bit of a gateway.
That's fantastic. I'm sort of curious. I know you started like in high school or college in football.
Yes.
And then you merged to business.
Yes.
I'm not sure why and where the coffee came in. Did you always love coffee, or I know that I read that in business school you had envisioned this whole coffee company.
Yeah, that's correct. The first answer, no, I didn't really love coffee.
Really?
And even before I moved to the US, I wouldn't really drink coffee that frequently. But what I would do is I'd always go to my local coffee shop twice a day. And how it sort of began was, you're correct, I was a professional sportsman. I played Australian rules football. It's a bit of an unusual game, played on a very large field. And you kick the ball. You don't pass it via hand or throw it. And I did that from high school. My last year of high school, I got drafted when I was 17, and I played 6 seasons professionally, and I was cut and delisted. So luckily I went to university at the same time, and I was able to find my way into banking and finance. And
was that boring compared to the sports?
No, I think I achieved my childhood dream, but I found it very challenging, and I guess I didn't achieve all my ambitions. So by the end of the 6th season, I was actually pretty mentally drained, and I was looking forward to a new challenge. And it was a bit of a deflating experience, because when you've built it up in your head that you're going to be this champion player and have an unbelievable career, and I played enough games to say I was a professional player, and I played 6 seasons, but I didn't achieve everything. And so when I moved into banking, I was so determined to do as well as I could, and I was really determined to work overseas and experience more of the world. And I'm very fortunate that banking enabled that to happen.
Did you imagine creating a company of your own? Was that sort of in the back of your head or the front of your head?
Not really.
Not really?
Even though my parents are both had started small businesses and had been a part of our lives, neither of them had worked for big corporates at all. I'm not sure why I didn't imagine that, but
it's really
unknown
intriguing
to me, the opportunity to try and bring a bit of that Melbourne or a bit of the Australian coffee culture to the US seemed.
What does that mean, the Aussie coffee culture? Because is that a big culture there?
Yeah, it really is. It's a huge part of the way people socialise. It's this social medium in which it brings people together in a very sort of accessible and friendly environment. And why it's sort of so different from what you typically find in the US is Australia is the land of independence. It's the market where Starbucks failed. And just to understand how successful Starbucks is, it's opened 31,000 stores in just under 40 years. It's worth $100 billion. That's its market cap. So it's pretty hard to actually fathom how successful and big it is. But Starbucks is pretty transactional, and it introduced espresso-based coffee in 1987 when Howard Schultz brought that notion of commercializing espresso coffee from Italy to the States. Now, the espresso coffee movement happened in Melbourne a lot earlier. It happened in the 1940s, pre and post World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And we were a tea drinking culture because we were part of the Commonwealth.
Right.
And we didn't have a drip coffee culture. So we went from tea straight to espresso, particularly in Melbourne.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tea right to espresso. I love that.
And so it just started a lot earlier. And I think by the time that, certainly in my last sort of 15 years, my professional career, the coffee had moved in a very sophisticated, curated way, and they'd added on this element of food and healthy food, and because it was independent owner operated, you had a very high level of service, and you had really curated environments. And the biggest thing I noticed when I moved here is people had this connection with different services like a mani and pedi place, a wash and fold place, and they were quite parochial about it, and they felt like they were a local, not a customer. And that was what was missing with the coffee culture here. I think everyone was focused on they didn't really have a local. It was just a place, a dispensary for caffeine, if you will.
Right.
And I thought that's got to change, and it's got to be more like what I'm used to in Australia. And that was the idea, and it really took off from there.
So it's more about the aesthetics and the fresh foods and the feeling, the ambience, or
the service is probably the most important element, and then certainly like unrelenting focus on premium quality coffee, and all your products need to be at that level. And I think, it was an opportunity to bring something that's more regarded as quite artisan in Australia, and to introduce it in a way that was very it was premium and very thoughtful. And I wanted that respite from banking because I was working very long hours, and I looked forward to that twice-a-day escape. And I really felt in New York, of all places, with all this density, we need to provide a level of respite.
Well, what's interesting is when I roam around the West Village or pretty much any neighborhood of Manhattan, and you wander into a cafe, including Bluestone Lane, people are not just relaxing and enjoying their coffee as a break from their day job, but they're actually working from the cafes. Like, I'm always thinking, does anybody have a job? Where they're doing the work there a lot. And I did want to ask you about that whole Made by WeWork connection. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I think that's really a pioneering idea about trying to introduce people to the notion of co-working without the requirement of a membership, and it's sort of a hybrid between a number of concepts that have been popular in New York, which is sort of these membership clubs which are built around a lot of sort of hospitality and arts like Soho House, and then combining that with the use of technology and flexible working that has revolutionized the way we do things via co-working, and then apply this level of premium localized hospitality which we bring. And I think it's a very visionary concept, and it's very early on, but we were approached by
WeWork?
By WeWork, yeah. And the person who really dreamed up the concept and was the architect was Julie Rice, who was actually a co-founder of SoulCycle. And she knew a lot about community and building a brand and making people feel this intrinsic connection. And that was a really great match with what we were offering. And that's really how it all came together. They basically picked us, and we worked on the concept and brought it to life. And now it's sort of at the process where we've got to evaluate scaling it, and I think WeWork would like to have more of them.
So some of your cafes have that, or
no, that's a unique concept. So we don't. I think a lot of the principles still apply to other stores, but certainly that notion of having accessibility of a co-working space and having all those that utility and amenities is unique to that particular property, but it will grow, and it could be a global proposition.
And so that where that is located, is that in one location? Where that's happening now?
Yeah, exactly. So right now there's only just one Made by We. It's 902 Broadway, so basically like
Soho area.
No, it's north. It's Flatiron.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Like 19th and Broadway.
Okay.
And I think that it could be applied to so many different markets, particularly people who may not want to take a permanent co-working desk but want the ability, if they're using New York as like a transit city or a gateway city where they're coming in for 3 days, and the opportunity to rent a desk there and experience what co-working's like, and to have this premium service proposition that we offer as well from the hospitality side. It's a pretty compelling offering, I think.
Yeah, well, you've certainly merged the business and the aesthetic. You know, those two things are really nice to combine, other than just like a routine in-out cafe. But there are many of them popping up. I mean, there's so many places. I find how it's so competitive, I would think. I mean, you got... In my neighborhood, there are about 4 different coffee places who pride themselves on, you know, the whole style and design and the flavor and the roast and all that. And so how are you trying to make it completely different?
I think it's a great point, but it's a huge market, and I think on initial observations you would say, it's incredibly competitive and it's a commoditized product and it's hard to make it, but you know, I think there's a whole transition towards these more owner-operated, you know, high-end experiences, and Starbucks is the most dominant by a long way. I think it has 250 stores in New York City, so there's plenty of space there for other entrants. And you know, I think that you're going to see the continued emergence of these independent brands that offer a high level of product quality, service, aesthetic, and you know, I think that particularly millennial customer, that they don't find the Starbucks brand as aspirational as potentially as it was. It's a bit too commercial, and you know, I
very
think
bitter too. Sorry.
Yeah. I think that, you know, they're just so big. It's hard to maintain that attention to quality, and their proposition's different. And you know, I'm in absolute admiration for what they've achieved. But you know,
I read that you spent when you were formulating and creating the whole concept, I guess, of Bluestone Lane, which I want to ask you about the name. You spent hours, like 75 hours, observing what they call guests at Starbucks. I always thought that was funny. It's like a hotel. They're guests at Starbucks, and how much time they spent there and what they bought. And was that educational for you? Did that help you?
Absolutely, because...
What did you find out?
Well, I've never worked in hospitality. This is my first hospitality job. So the whole experience has been about just learning every day and, you know, rope learning, if you will. And I really didn't know much about the Starbucks story, and I really didn't have an appreciation for the success. And in Australia, we're quite proud of this independent, premium quality sort of coffee culture, and I think there's a lot of parochialism around that our coffee culture is more curated and better than the American one. And so I probably had that bias when I landed here, and then I started to discover why Starbucks was so successful. I had this real awakening, but then I could see how the customer was getting older, and that they weren't connecting necessarily with this young professional, and particularly young professional female customer. And that's where I thought Bluestone could play this role, particularly with its focus on health and on aesthetics. When we launched the business, a lot of coffee stores were quite even pretentious. They were quite dark and masculine, and it was that what people would categorize as a bit hipster, and certainly, like in Australia, that wasn't the case. Like it's very open, accessible, but it's premium and curated, and that's what I wanted to bring. And I wanted to bring those feminine touches, so it felt accessible to all and like an escape, because in New York City, that's what people need.
You said it. It is definitely, we need escapes pretty much every hour from my job. And your signature food dishes are things like the avocado smash and the banana toast or
banana bread,
and coconut quinoa oatmeal. Never heard of
that. Quinoa porridge,
pretty interesting stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Because I have to say, like Starbucks, there's really nothing I can buy there to eat. You know, I mean, it's expensive no matter where you go, so you may as well get something that's more aesthetic and healthier, and that's what you're offering, pretty much, right?
Yeah, I think healthy food's a big part of the story, and I do think we're probably quite influential in the commercialization of avocado sort of smash.
It is a bit trendy.
You know, that's the way it is in Australia. You should be able to grab a quick bite, and it should be, you know, primarily orientated around breakfast and you know, light lunch, and it needed to be healthy and it needed to be wholesome and primarily uncooked, and that's where I thought there was an opportunity. And it can taste terrific, but it doesn't need like an incredible amount of preparation or high skill. So it's worked really, really well, and I love the fact that you don't have to have something fried or processed or something wrapped in plastic, which is probably like the biggest concern I have about like the future of eating is like the amount of processed food. And I'm really glad that so many of these plant-based food and alternative milk manufacturers are doing really well, because it's important for societal sort of health, particularly as it relates to obesity and type 2 diabetes, but also obviously because of sustainability and use of resources to provide the food that we need to survive. So
farmers and where do some of the coffee beans come from? In Maverick,
Sure.
You've got Maverick and Flagstaff or some of the
that's right. So Maverick is our espresso blend, and then Flagstaff, which is the first garden in Melbourne, actually, Flagstaff Gardens, which is our drip coffee and cold brew blend. And the beans are primarily sourced from South America, Colombia and Brazil, and there's often some Ethiopian coffee in there, or sometimes Guatemalan. So, and then we have single origin, where typically that flavor profile is more fruity and lighter, and it's probably more suited to drink by as an espresso or a drip or pour over, where you don't mix it with milk. And typically that's we've had a whole variety of different single origins, from Nicaragua to Papua New Guinea. There's the whole variety of different Ethiopian.
Did you learn a lot about the beans and the roasting and all that, or did you concentrate more on the business end?
I think for me it was more about, I was an experienced person, so I still don't have like a particularly well-educated coffee palate. I drink coffee with milk. I'm not a big espresso
what kind
drinker.
Of milk do you use?
I primarily have, if I have like if I have a piccolo, which is small.
Small?
It's a small volume. It's smaller than a flat white. It's about 4 ounces, and I have that primarily with oat milk. And if I have something like a flat white, I either have oat milk or I have dairy milk. Depends how.
Well, it's Cow Appreciation Day, so go for it.
So there you go. Makes sense.
And how did you get somebody as prominent as somebody like Stephen Ross to help to invest? Is that a business through business school or just networking?
No, I think Steve and Matt Higgins have a terrific relationship, and they established this business that they want to find young entrepreneurs, founder-led companies that are creating this brand resonance in New York City, and they have an ability to grow. And Steve is an incredible entrepreneur, and so is Matt. And how they discovered Bluestone was really through someone who worked for Matt. Said he was going every weekend and couldn't believe how busy it was, and was such a big fan about the coffee and the way he felt and the way our team and teammates made him feel. And that led to a preliminary meeting. Matt didn't attend, and I actually didn't think they were that serious. So I didn't hear back from them from 6 months later.
Wow.
And then Matt met me at 90 Water Street, and at that stage, the store was less than perfect. It was quite chaotic, and I was a little bit frustrated as passionate founders get. And I was pretty candid with Matt, like, oh my God, this is a disaster, and like if we got this right, this company could be so special. And that conversation led from what was meant to be a 30-minute meeting ended up being 2.5 hours.
Wow.
And then I pretty much knew from then that we were going to be partners. And
that's so amazing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't have to be the perfect thing to work. Right?
I think honesty and being really candid is extremely valued by people who are very successful, because they're pretty time sensitive, and they've got a lot of opportunity cost, and that I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'm very honest. And
the chemistry has to be some chemistry, I'm sure, right?
And I think they just saw something special in our brand and in our customer and our team, and frankly, I guess me. it just has been an incredible partnership that I'm so thankful. It really has sort of changed my life and my family's life by giving this opportunity to grow this brand and to extend to now 7 cities, soon to be 8.
Really?
Yeah.
I know you're in Venice, in California.
Yes.
And where else are you?
So we're in Los Angeles. We're in San Francisco. We're in Washington D.C., Philadelphia. We have one store in New Jersey, soon to be a second. New York City. We're opening in Boston, and we have a store in Toronto that we opened only a few weeks ago.
And you're out in Montauk, I believe.
Yes, yeah,
right?
we're in the Hamptons and we're in Westchester. But yeah, Montauk has been a really great story for us, actually, because it was a very early on store, and a lot of people look at it as extremely risky. But I knew from the start that this was going to be a real lifestyle brand, and for our customer that comes on the weekend in summer, they often go down there, and I thought we have to be where our customer is, and it's got a real sort of commonality to the beaches in Australia and the beach town, where it's pretty casual, and you can wear bare feet down the street and shorts and t-shirt and get away with it, and surf in the morning or go for a run, then go for a surf, have great coffee and brunch, catch up with friends, maybe play some sport, then have a shower and meet at the pub for a beer. And I think it has some of those elements.
Yes,
and
definitely. I think it's a perfect place for it. I've been going there for about 25 years, but I was there in December, and it looked like it was not open yet.
No, so it's only seasonal.
Right.
So we struggle to staff it and operate it during the depth of winter.
Yeah,
but
it's a hard thing.
Yeah, it really is, and I think a lot of those towns, they really can only operate during certain times of the year, and so when we do, we try and make the most of it and give it the best effort, and it's doing well. My brother actually runs it as a bit of his side project in addition to overseeing all marketing and brand. So some days he's not particularly pleased with me.
Stone unturned.
That's correct.
I'm sure you've heard that many times.
A couple, yeah.
So hard to be right here. But anyway, my guest has been lovely Nick Stone of Bluestone Lane. And try the coffee. It is really incredible. Try some avocado smash. Try the whole thing. The whole experience of the Aussie culture and now New York culture and many other cities. So thank you so much, Nick, for coming on to Mia's World and making our world better with coffee. So in honor of coffee and Bluestone Lane, we're going to go out of the show with the Ink Spots and Java Jive. Thank you for listening. Go have some wonderful iced coffee. And BluestoneLane.com, is it, Nick?
BluestoneLane.com.
BluestoneLane.com. So thank you again for listening to Mia's World, and go hear some music and sip some of that coffee. Thanks very much for listening.
Vai minha tristeza e diz a ela que sem ela não pode ser. Diz-lhe numa prece que ela regresse, porque eu não posso mais sofrer.
Sorry, we had a little bit of a mishap here, so we're going out instead of the Ink Spots. Check out Java Jive by the Ink Spots, but this is the beautiful Chega de Saudade by Joao Gilberto. Thank you so much for listening to Mia's World. Thank you, Nick.
Que não sai de mim, não sai de mim, não sai. Mas se ela voltar, que coisa linda, que coisa louca. Pois há menos peixinhos a nadar no mar do que os beijinhos que eu darei na sua boca. Dentro dos meus braços, os abraços hão de ser milhões de abraços, apertado assim, colado assim, calado assim, abraços e beijos e carinhos sem ter fim, que é pra acabar com esse negócio de viver longe de mim. Não quero mais esse negócio de você viver assim. Vamos deixar desse negócio de você viver sem mim. uma vez um lobo mau que resolveu jantar alguém. Estava sem tem, mas arriscou e logo se estrepou. Um chapeuzinho de maiô, ouviu buzina e não parou. Mas lobo mau insiste e faz cara de triste. Mas Chapeuzinho ouviu os conselhos da vovó, dizer que não pra lobo, que com lobo não sai só. Lobo canta, pede, promete tudo, até amor, e diz que fraco de lobo é ver um chapeuzinho de maiô. Mas Chapeuzinho percebeu que o lobo mau se derreteu. Pra ver você que lobo também faz papel de bobo. Só posso lhe dizer, Chapeuzinho, agora atrás, o lobo na coleira que não janta nunca mais. Lobo bobo. Chegou, sorriu, venceu.
Yo, what's going on? Y'all listening to Sky's Crescent Radio, and here's what's coming up. On the first Sunday of the month, we have the Poet Podcast with Dale Novella. On the second Sunday of the month,